Greetings and welcome to another video, which this time is about a retro mini DV camcorder, and specifically this one, the Sony VX2000, or to give it its full name, the Sony DCR-VX2000, and actually the Sony DCR-VX2000E, as this is the PAL model for use here in the UK. However, most people just know this as the VX2000, and a very lovely classic camcorder it is. The camera records 4:3 standard definition video to mini DV tape, which is a resolution of 720 by 576 on this PAL model, or 720 by 480 on NTSC models, with pixels that are not square in either instance. Inside, there are three 3/3-inch charge couple device or CCD sensors, one each for the RG and B colour channels, and the quality this delivers is very good for a standard definition device. And indeed, lots of broadcasters back in the early noughties really liked this camcorder, not for doing all their main work. This doesn't deliver quite broadcast quality, but it's close, and so this is a very useful camera to have around when you want a small camera to deliver the odd shot. This camera, the VX2000, was the first ever piece of really high quality camera equipment that I purchased. And until I bought my next Sony camcorder, it was by far the most expensive thing that I owned. I got it in early 2001, although it was launched by Sony in the year 2000 as the successor to the highly successful VX1000. And that camcorder was the first to have three CCD image sensors in a unit that recorded to mini DV tapes, and the VX2000 then sort of followed it with a few extras. Most notably, it had this screen. This is a 2.5-inch LCD screen which pops out, and listen to the click. The build quality here is probably better than any camera I've ever had since. It's absolutely fantastic, the build quality here, and the screen will do this. It'll do what we used to call a digi-beta. It'll go against the side of the unit, which is really great. We can't do that in cameras these days, but it was what always used to happen on digi-beta camcorders back in the early noughties, the sort of things that we use, sort of shoulder-mounted cameras and things for broadcast production of news, things like that. And it's worth noting that whilst this camcorder was large and expensive, it was a consumer model. This is a Sony Handycam, as is written, I think, on the side down there. Yes, it is. This is not a professional camcorder, and Sony did make a professional version of this called the PD150. And the PD150 was basically the same. It had the same lens, the same sensors, the same image quality, but there were a few key differences. Not least, the PD150 was grey rather than silver. It had balanced XLR audio inputs. There was an audio pod up here we don't have on this consumer Handycam. And it also had a black and white viewfinder. Here the viewfinder is a colour, whereas the professional users liked a black and white viewfinder because they thought they could focus more easily. They probably could. And also on the PD150, you could record to mini DV cam tapes, like one of these, as well as to a regular mini DV, whereas on the VX2000, you can only record to a regular mini DV tape. And if you're wondering what the difference is, because these two tapes are clearly identical in terms of form factor, the difference is that DV cam runs the tape 50% faster to reduce dropouts, and it's also got a slightly better audio recording capability. Although this does mean you only get 40 minutes on a mini DV cam tape compared to 60 minutes on a regular mini DV. And on the subject of tape, it's worth noting that the VX2000 could use mini DV tapes with so-called IC memory. And this means there's some flash storage on this tape, which is accessed by the little connectors you can see down here. And what this allows the camera to do is things like finding the end of the last recording, even when you've taken the tape out of the camera. So you could have this tape in the camera, you could take it out, put it back again, press a button, and the camera could find the end of the last recording and continue recording from there with uninterrupted timecode. You couldn't do that normally with mini DV if you'd taken the tape out of the camera. Back with the VX2000 itself, let's run through its controls and specifications. And on the side here, we have a selector for auto or manual focus, including a push auto button down there. And we also have an index mark button for leaving index marks on the tape or IC memory. And then we've also got a control for neutral density filters over here. Massively good click on that as well. Very, very good build quality, as I keep stressing on this camera, and the neutral density filter is used when you're in a very bright condition. You want to reduce the brightness hitting the sensor, you just push it up and like that. Very common still on camcorders, not so common on other cameras these days. And then the other thing we have here are fantastic exposure controls. We've got a button here for going between auto and manual exposure, and then here a little iris dial. And I do like this. I'm not sitting in an exactly perfect position to look at the camera right now, but you can see already my finger just falls into a natural position where I can control auto or manual exposure and then use the iris dial. I wish modern cameras had such a well laid out set of exposure controls. Further up, we have the lens, which has got fly-by-wire controls here for zoom and focus, and it's also got a claim here for 48 times zoom. That's not real, of course, that includes digital zoom. The optical zoom on this lens is 12 times, with the equivalent of 43 to 518mm on a full-frame stills camera. On the front, we have a removable lens cap, as this camcorder was made before Sony invented the integrated lens cover. And it's interesting that to remove the lens hood, if we just go around like that, there's actually a little thumb screw. Again, beautifully made, fantastic build quality. We just take that round like that, and then we could take off the lens hood if we wish like that. For example, to fit close-up lenses, with the thread here being 58mm. Turning to audio, we have got built-in stereo microphones, and then just down from this we have a little rubber cover, and if we take that off, you can see we have got a 3.5mm input, which can be switched between microphone and line. Also on this side, there are a range of other connectors. Under this cover we have headphone and a LANC control to control the camera remotely. And then under here, we've got loads of connectors. We have got S-video, we have got composite video, stereo audio, and we've got DV in-out as it's labelled here, although it's otherwise known as Firewire or IEEE 1394, and this allows the direct connection of this camera to a computer for ingesting DV footage, and it also includes the ability to have full camera control from the computer from the video editor. And it's worth noting that all of these connectors can function as either inputs or outputs, so it's possible to use the VX2000 as a DV recording deck with signals fed to it via DV or via S-video or composite video. And so, like many other people, I used to use the VX2000 not just as a camera, but also as a recording deck for outputting final videos back to the tape. Also on this side, we have got a zoom rocker, as you can see, along with a photo button I'll come back to in a second. A bit lower down, there's then an on-off control that allows the unit to be put into VCR or camera modes, and also into a memory mode, which again we'll return to in a second. Finally, on the left side, we have the cassette compartment, which we can open with the eject control like that. There it is, it's come out. And I'll just show you putting a tape in, goes in like this. Push internally, push externally. And the tape has gone in. You might hear it whirring around, sorting itself out. I think it's done it now. And once it has, we'll make it very annoyed. We'll put some wear onto the system and eject it again. And gives it back again, and we can remove the tape, push again to close everything up. Turning to the back, we find the battery compartment, here fitted with a modern Sony MP battery because this standard hasn't changed in over 25 years, which is clearly a good thing. And we also have a menu button, a menu control dial, and buttons for auto exposure modes, shutter speed, white balance, and audio level. However, it's worth noting that the circuits for manual audio on this camcorder do have a hiss problem. And when Sony found out about this shortly after the release of the camcorder, they just told customers to use the auto audio record level, which doesn't have the hiss problem. However, some users, and most notably the BBC, who bought hundreds of these camcorders, implemented an internal fix that allowed an audio input via an external mixer without the hiss issue. Finally, on the end here we have a slot for a Sony memory stick. Let's take this out. These are the things that look like a piece of chewing gum. There it is. And this was used on the camcorder to record photos using the photo button we saw earlier, and the memory mode we noted earlier was also exclusively for photos. Photo resolution was a whopping 640 by 480, if at a very decent quality. and the camera came with this memory card reader to allow images to be uploaded to a computer. It's worth noting that it's possible to superimpose titles and graphics stored on the memory card onto the video during camera recording. And to enable this, there are various controls behind the LCD, and these include image navigation controls as well as a button for memory mix image superimposition. And we also here have zebra controls to make it easier to set exposure, and we also have a display button for turning on and off control overlays. And so there we are, the Sony VX2000, a classic mini DV camcorder that was used by a lot of broadcasters as well as prosumers in the early noughties, and which I think now we should put to the test. Greetings, here I am back again, and look what I found, a unwrapped brand new Sony mini DV tape with IC memory. This is the very last one I've got in stock. So let's open it up. Never remember how you get into these things. Another unboxing I can't do. Come on, let me in. There must be a trick to this. Oh, there we are. Look, once it's started, it'll be easy and we can now just viciously attack it. I still can't get in. Never mind. I'll do that eventually. There we are, look. A lovely... I still can't get in. Deary, deary me. Brand new tape. Lovely. So we can get it out of its little box like that. There we are. And the camera's all waiting for it. And you might say, Chris, this shot's out of focus. Do not panic. This shot is all set up so I can show you in a second the video heads of the camera. There they are in the bottom there. You can see the video head. Let's just zoom in a bit. You can see the video head. Cylindrical head. The tape will be wound around that head so it can record onto it. So let's now put the tape in the camera, drop it in the top like that, push and push. And you might be able to hear it there threading the tape around the head we just saw. And what I'm now going to do is to venture outside to take some test shots. And by the magic of filmmaking, here I am back again. I've been out filming with this camcorder for the first time in, well, many years. And just take a look at the top of the camcorder when I turn it on into VCR mode. You'll see it actually displays some transport controls on the top here under the handle. And we can see the little screen has come to life. And if I just press the play button, you'll see the first thing I recorded was color bars. Never ever record on the first, we can debate what, 10, 15, 20 seconds, minute of tape. Much better to record color bars there, which is what I've done. And so you can see things more easily. I'm not just going to show you things on a little screen down here. Oh look, there's a duck. I've also, around the back here, got the composite video output connected up to this little box, and I'm recording this on an HDMI recorder. And if I just bring that onto the screen, we can see there is the duck. Oh, it's quacking at us. That's nice, isn't it? These are some of the shots I took this afternoon. We can fast forward on tape. Like that. There's some more ducks there. Hello, duck. Nice little duck. And, oh, that's a squirrel. The squirrel shot. That's a lovely shot of a squirrel, isn't it? And in fact, I'm sure you want to see this footage better than we can see it via the composite video output. So what I need to do is to get the footage off the camera. And normally the way you used to do this was to connect the camera via its firewire connected to your computer and ingest that way. But the way I'm going to do it is slightly different. I'm going to take this device here, which can record an HDV, DV cam or DV data stream directly to a compact flash card. So I'll just show you that in here. There is a compact flash card. There we are. It's 16 gigabytes. It was big at the time. And this is a generation of DV technology way on from the VX2000, but it's useful for me here today. So if I turn this thing on, I should note it actually powers from the traditional Sony batteries, just like the camcorder as well. You can see it's got a little screen that says, I think, welcome, like that. And it should pick up in a second the code coming in from the camera. It's plugged into the camera. And yes, we can see it's got information on the screen. And all I'd have to do is to press 2 record buttons at once, and it would start recording. And it's now streaming footage from the camera. And earlier, I streamed all the footage I shot today from the camera. So let's take a look at that, which is in fact a selection of the best shots cut together, not all the footage. and I've scaled it up to a 1080p frame height. I've de-interlaced it because we were shooting interlaced video on the VX2000, sharpened it a bit, and some of it looks rather good, doesn't it? Look at this shot of the squirrel. This is shot interlaced standard definition. We're looking at it here in a 1080p frame, and it looks rather good. You know, the colour looks good. I'm impressed what the VX2000 can deliver even today. This said, here there are problems with the water, with the de-interlacing. I can't get it better than this. I suppose I could just basically get rid of every other field, but that would make it look even worse. But here, oh, bird taking off. Here, the interlacing isn't so much of a problem. You know, the water movement is okay. So it just depends shot by shot. Here again, the water looks all right with these swans. Hello, swans. It was a cold day outside today. Lots of ice, as you can see. The swans have to compete with that, as do these ducks. Hello, ducks. Are you having a good time? We are having a good time. We enjoy being shot on DV by the VX2000 camcorder. Oh, and there's me on the end waving goodbye. And so there we are, the Sony VX2000, which, as I said earlier, I purchased in 2001. And at the time, I was a full-time university lecturer. I was actually also director of undergraduate programs in the business school at the University of Nottingham. So I had some money to spend, and that's why I could purchase a piece of equipment like this. And I purchased this camcorder very much to get back into film and video making. It had been some years at the time since I produced animation for the BBC, and I will talk about my 6 years producing animation for the BBC as a freelancer in the next video on this channel, because lots of you have asked about that, so I'll start talking about that in the next video here. But anyway, back in 2001, I hadn't been doing that for a while, and I purchased this to get back into film and video making. Still like the quality of the click on that screen. And the first film I made with this camera was called The Second Digital Revolution, in which I did my first ever pieces to camera. As you can see here, I look slightly younger back in 2001. What a surprise. And sadly, after I'd made that particular film, a bit later in 2001, I became very ill indeed. And it wasn't until 2008 I got back to filmmaking. This camera sadly sat on the shelf for all of its best years, but in 2008 I shot the first Explaining Computers video using this camera, and indeed all of my early Explaining Computers and Explaining the Future videos were shot on this camera. And I still have a great affection for it because of not just what it is, but what it represents in my life. And so if we bring up the excitement scale, I think I'm going to rate this as a 9 in terms of excitement. But now that's it for another video. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, please press that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And I hope to talk to you again very soon.